Hello again, friends. Welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. Spring football report here. Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell. Wes, Coach Will Muschamp with a press conference today to talk about the scrimmage that the Gamecock football team had this past Saturday, and there was some interesting information coming out of that presser today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, some stuff we already knew, also some stuff we maybe did. I think the overriding theme to me was I think Will Muschamp pleased with the way his players have responded. I think you could sort of tell he's been pleased with, I think, the work ethic for the most part. I think as far as the team as a whole, I think he's been pleased with how they responded to having so much thrown at him. Full offensive playbook, full defensive playbook. He made it clear didn't really scale anything back. They sort of just threw everything at him to see who could respond to it. So he's been happy with that, but I think the other side of the coin, that if you listen to Muschamp, for the entire presser, was that you could tell he feels that there is absolutely a long way to go. Now some positions I think there's longer ways to go than others. Some positions I think they feel a little bit better about long term. They feel a little bit better about their depth at. But then some other positions, obviously, some really true concerns at this point. And I think that's probably to be expected. Muschamp even said there's a lot of teams that have question marks at certain positions, and that's very common for this time of the year. And this is a 3-win football team last year, so you wouldn't expect everything to be in place. But I think if you want to look at the glass half full, the fact that Muschamp has been pleased with the way his team has responded to everything, I think, has to be a pretty good sign.
Coach Muschamp said that Darius English is out with a pulled quad. Wes, talk about some of the positions that are considered weaknesses right now. I think Coach Muschamp and others are most concerned about the secondary right now, primarily safety.
Yeah, well, I think the skill positions on both sides, where we're talking about the secondary on the defensive side and then the wide receivers on the offensive side, I think those are probably the two biggest concerns right now. The secondary, I thought it was interesting. He sort of singled out a couple of guys in particular. You heard him talk about Rashad Fenton. Seemed to, sound like he's done okay. I think, Chris Lamont, is a talent. I think they have some guys in the secondary that can help. But, when a coach uses the word light years away, talking about the secondary as a whole, and this is a guy who secondary is his thing. That's his baby. And, I think just like when a head coach, Steve Spurrier was harder on the quarterbacks than any other position. So, I think Will Muschamp's probably going to be very, very hard on the secondary, and I think he knows it's going to be up to him to put those safeties, like you mentioned, put those safeties in a position to where they can, at least be serviceable for South Carolina this year. Now, I do think there's help on the way. I think you talk about getting in a guy like Jamarcus King, very, very good football player. A kid that was the top junior college cornerback in the country. He'll be here this summer. He's a guy that steps into the rotation, steps into the starting lineup right away. So they'll get some help from him. They'll get some help from other guys. But right now, that's obviously a concern. Circling back around to wide receiver, Deebo Samuel is a guy that great football player. He didn't really get to show it as much last year, but people just have to take my word for it. The kid can play. He's going to be fine. They're pretty good there, but then you just look at who else can go make defenses account for them. He mentioned Terry Guger's had a decent spring. Brian Edwards has done some good things to be a true freshman, but past that, Jamari Smith's working at receiver full time. He's a guy that can help, but it's just there's not a lot of guys in the receiving corps right now who have that ability that Deebo does to make a defense account for him and to make people miss in the open field and to make plays.
Spring football report here on Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell. The Gamecocks held a closed scrimmage this past Saturday, and Coach Will Muschamp had a press conference today to talk about that, and he talked extensively in detail about a lot of the things that went on and about personnel as well. So one of the most encouraging comments that he made to me, Wes, was about Kier Thomas, this early enrollee freshman out of South Florida coming in to play defensive line for the Gamecocks. Said from the first practice to the most recent, Kier Thomas might be the most improved player that he's seen, and the Gamecocks certainly need help on the D-line.
Yeah, they do. He's a guy that could play some buck, but could play some defensive end as well, the sort of true defensive end spot. And, this kid was highly recruited. He's a high three-star type, but lots of good schools wanted him. They wanted him at Auburn prior to coming over to Columbia. So someone they've been in on for a long time, really, really liked his playmaking ability, had 20-plus sacks as a senior in high school. They need, Muschamp said they need more pass rush, and they're going to do everything they can to get pass rush on the field. I don't think Kier's in a spot where he's going to start right away, but it's obviously encouraging when your true freshman can sort of not be overwhelmed by spring practice, but actually sort of just soak it all up and get better as they go.
Muschamp said the Gamecocks are happy at tight end with Hayden Hurst and Casey Crosby. He mentioned both of them by name, and he also talked about Debo Samuel and Jamari Smith at wide receiver. Smith playing in the slot, and that looks like that's where he'll remain, at least for the foreseeable future. Wes, in the scrimmage on Saturday, the Gamecocks worked on red zone packages, goal line packages, and McElwain was kind of the featured quarterback, I suppose, in the scrimmage on Saturday. At least that's what we gathered from today's presser. Coach Muschamp talked about him. He talked about Connor Mitch, and he talked about Scarnecchia as well, Michael Scarnecchia, the three healthy quarterbacks that the Gamecocks have right now. Also, Lorenzo Nunez, rumored that he may be back this week. West, does it look like Nunez may play in the spring game coming up this Saturday?
Yeah, that's the hope. They've kind of had their eye on this week since he got hurt. That is still the hope. They've got a Tuesday practice, they've got a Thursday practice, and they have the game, of course, on Saturday. So the hope is that he'll be back, and then he'll be able to get out there and play Saturday.
Has there been any separation at quarterback, Wes, with Orth and Nunez out? It looks like McElwain has done the best he can to show that he can handle this offense, but how much do we really know about the quarterback position at this point?
I think Orth and McElwain had separated themselves before the Orth injury. Now, that said, Lorenzo Nunez is a guy that really hasn't had a true chance because he's been out, and I don't know if you can completely count him out either. I think the athleticism there, the ability to sort of make something happen when nothing's there. You look at an offense, like I said, you look at an offense that kind of has some lack of playmakers. Having a dynamic guy at quarterback who can run the football, maybe is not the worst thing in the world. So, I think Nunez, the fact they're going to extend it into fall camp, Nunez is not completely out of the mix. So I think Orth and McElwain, because Orth's out for the spring, he'll be back. He'll be back early June. So
right.
He'll be very much in the mix again. And then I think Nunez is sort of what you'd call the wild card right now. I think those, to me, are the three that are really factoring in the most.
Garnet and Black spring game coming up this Saturday at noon at Williams-Brice. Before we talk more about that, Wes, let's talk recruiting. The Gamecocks picked up a couple more commitments this week for next year.
A couple Saturday commitments. Eric Douglas, offensive lineman from Charlotte's powerhouse Mallard Creek program. As a school that South Carolina's recruited other prospects from. They're recruiting several more prospects in this class, including his good friend T.J. Moore, a couple other guys there they're recruiting as well. It's a kid, I think he's a three-star guy on our ranking system, but had offers from all over the Southeast, a bunch of SEC and ACC offers. Really has the type of offer list for those. I know a lot of people really, will look at offer lists more so than even rankings. So those folks, this is a kid you have to like, has been a target for South Carolina for some time. Sean Elliott's made him a priority. That sort of carried over with the new coaching staff. And, the kid is a nice pickup. Tyreek Johnson is more of a sort of in-state, under-the-radar kid that Muschamp evaluated on film. They really liked. He's the first career commitment of Mike Peterson, the new outside linebackers coach for South Carolina. I say new. He's not super new, but he was the last addition to the staff. It's his first commitment as a college coach. And, it's a kid that I think if you're, a fan out there when it comes to defensive players, Muschamp knows what a guy looks like that can play. This is a kid that has, I think 2-3 years ago, Tyreek Johnson was about 5'6", 160 pounds. And the kid is just blown up. He's now 6'4". He's listed at 245, but probably even a little bit bigger than that. Broke a record at the state strength meet a couple of weeks ago in the long jump, I think it was. Did really well there. So, they're going to make in-state a priority. And, when you got a guy that's got some length, some athleticism off the edge, and he's an in-state player, if they like him, they're not going to really care about the offer list. They're gonna trust their own evaluations and go after a kid. So that's sort of what happened with Tyreek Johnson. Just a really, I think fans as they get to know these kids, both Eric Douglas and Tyreek Johnson, the way they carry themselves just really come across as good, high-character kids, too.
Yeah, and Tyreek Johnson's from the Midlands. He's out of Sumter County, Lakewood High School, 6'4", 245, defensive end. And you mentioned Eric Douglas out of Charlotte, Mallard Creek High, powerhouse up there in Charlotte, offensive tackle, 6'4", 275 pounds. So 2 more commitments for the Gamecocks for next year's class. And, Wes, you mentioned that Mallard Creek has got a couple of other Division I prospects on their team, T.J. Moore and Ryan Jones. Jones currently a UNC commit, and Eric Douglas has gone out of his way to say that he's going to try and get his teammates to come to Columbia with him and be Gamecocks with him.
Yeah, that's what you want. Hopefully people will go read that article where Eric talks about it. But that's what you want. You want guys that are invested in a program, that aren't just maybe committing to a name or committing even to a coach. You want kids that are invested in the program and want to try to make the program better. So that's obviously what you get with Eric Douglas.
All right, Wes, the stadium will be opened up. It's free admission for the Garnet and Black Spring Game coming up this Saturday at noon at Williams-Brice. And for the first time ever, there will be an alumni flag football game prior to the start of the spring game. So the alumni flag game will start at 11 o'clock. The spring game itself will start at noon. And we've got like 90 former Gamecock players that have signed up to play in this alumni flag football game. Headline, of course, by the great Marcus Lattimore. It's going to be great to see him at Williams-Brice again.
Yeah, I think that would be fun for the fans to get out there early and watch some of that, see some old faces and old names. And I think that would be fun for the former players, too, because Muschamp wants to do everything he can to get everybody back involved and back on campus and to feel welcomed on campus. So, the spring game should be pretty interesting. There's going to be some new stuff, I think, that we're not used to. There's going to be some special guest coaches out there as well that are media members, and it's going to be just a little bit different as the entire spring has been. It's just I'm not saying anything's necessarily better or worse. Everybody has their own way of doing things, but I'm kind of interested to see sort of the different wrinkles for a Will Muschamp spring game, and I kind of hope the fans show up and make it a true sort of game atmosphere, because I think it actually really could be a pretty fun day for the fan base, because you got the South Carolina Tennessee baseball game later on that day as well. So could be a pretty good little family day for people.
Yeah, we expect good weather this Saturday. Coach Muschamp has asked for a big turnout from Gamecock Nation. We're going to have a number of recruits on campus visiting this weekend, and Coach Muschamp wants to create that game day feel at Williams-Brice for the spring game this Saturday. So we hope everybody can make it out. Again, 11 o'clock start Saturday morning for the alumni flag football game, and a noon start for the spring game, the Garnet and Black game this Saturday at Williams-Brice. Wes, you do a great job. You can read Wes's work on GamecockCentral.com. We appreciate your time. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right. He's Wes Mitchell, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for joining us.